Representative Swalwell, Paul Gosar was the other Republican member who was knocked off committees for similar reasons to Marjorie Taylor Greene. We have Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace tonight saying that she would not vote to remove anyone from a committee, and that indicates that as of tonight, Kevin McCarthy doesn't have all the Republican votes.
I hope that's the case for Ms. Omar, because as you pointed out, her removal would require a vote on the floor. It's much easier for McCarthy with Chairman Schiff and myself. But Lawrence, what we're seeing here is that the new McCarthy looks a lot like the old McCarthy, an individual who would abuse their political power to exact political vengeance. And in my case, he's doing it under the fig leaf of false claims that the Washington Post fact checker pointed out gave him 4 Pinocchios, and the same, just as bogus for his claims about Chairman Schiff and Ms. Omar. And so he's going to regret the day that he has given me more free time, Lawrence, because I'm not going to be quiet. I'm not going to back down. I'm with Mr. Schiff and Ms. Omar in the breach. I'm going to do everything I can over the next 2 years to hold Mr. McCarthy and the people he struck this corrupt bargain with accountable, whether it's inside the House or outside, putting us back in the majority in the midterms of 2024.
Chairman Schiff, which is your title in the last Congress, what I know from my own experience working on 2 Senate committees on the staff is that the experienced members are invaluable. They bring an experience that is so necessary in that room. I know nothing about the workings of the Intelligence Committee, as no one who hasn't worked on it can. No one does. I can only imagine the value of your experience to that committee. I know you're not the person who's going to come here and brag about that, but generally talk about the value to the Intelligence Committee of the House of experienced members.
Well, thank you, Lawrence. By definition, prior to serving on the Intelligence Committee, you really can't know much about what that committee covers, because so much of it is classified. And so I think among probably all the committees, it has among the steepest learning curve. And frankly, your first several months, sometimes longer than that, you're just trying to figure out what are these programs, what do these acronyms mean? You're coming to understand how the agencies work. There are a lot more of these agencies than you probably knew about before you're on the committee. So it is a very steep learning curve. Experience matters. But, a big part of what McCarthy is trying to do here, in part certainly is placating Marjorie Taylor Greene and the crazies in his conference. It's also an effort to render ineffective Democratic opposition to what they're doing, Democratic oversight to the abuses that are sure to come. And you're looking at members who all take their oversight responsibilities seriously. He's trying to undermine that. I agree completely with Mr. Swalwell. It's not going to work. We're going to be as determined as ever with whatever platform we have to push back, to fight back, to hold them accountable. And lastly, I just want to pick up on something that Ilhan said about safety. The reason these 2 members were thrown off their committees was because they were encouraging violence against other members. All 3 of us, Lawrence, have been the subject of innumerable death threats. It is a sad reality in the Trump era. And so, yes, we take security and safety very seriously because we've experienced threats to ourselves and our families. McCarthy obviously doesn't care about that. His actions are only going to accentuate the risks, and particularly empowering people that encourage violence against others is exactly the wrong message. And one point, if I could, Eric and I are in grief right now because our fellow citizens in California have been gunned down now in 2 shootings, mass shootings, and our heart breaks for them. We need to not only deal with the problem of gun violence, but we also need to deal with what we're talking about here tonight, and that is the encouragement of political violence, which is also on the rise.
Representative Omar, you are one of the most threatened members of the House in history. That's one of the reasons you were taken with Nancy Pelosi on January 6th. You're not a member of the leadership, but you needed to be offered even more protection than the average member of the House that day. Marjorie Taylor Greene has said recently that if she had been running that insurrection, everyone would have been armed. Kevin McCarthy obviously doesn't feel threatened, apparently, as Donald Trump didn't feel threatened by the people who Donald Trump incited to attack the Capitol. What does it feel like for you to once again be used by Kevin McCarthy to try to incite that kind of energy in Republicans who are out there watching this?
It's scary. I know that Eric Swalwell shared some of the death threats that he has been getting since Kevin has been public about targeting us. The reason on January 6th I had the extra protection and that that I had the ability to be removed with leadership was because the 3 months during the final stages of the campaign, Trump chose to use my name at every single rally, and that increased the level of death threats that I was getting. And I know that what they're engaged in now will continue to incite violence against my family and the families of Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff. I do also want to underscore the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene, when she was being removed, one of the reasons was that during her campaign, she held a rifle to my head and the heads of other members of Congress. She asked for the Speaker to be hanged and said she committed treason. She came to the Capitol to harass myself and Rashida and said Muslims were taking over Congress, that we needed to take our oath of office on the Bible. This is someone who believes that 9/11 was an inside job. We are not dealing with a normal, rational member of Congress. We are dealing with someone who obviously jokes about the fact that if she was leading the insurgency on January 6th, that she would have been armed. This is someone who clearly thinks violence is okay, someone who encourages violence, and someone who is a clear danger to myself and others in Congress.